so here's the deal. I'm trying to think through this, and I got an idea what I'm going to do. But basically, you know, I want to put this rudder on. I don't think Bonafide has released a rudder kit yet. I didn't see it on their website anyway. But the rudder I got from Amazon, like I said, it was only like 30 bucks or so. And I think it'll do what I want. And it comes ready to mount in the hole like this in the kayak. However, this is too thick for that rudder. The thickness here is too thick for that rudder. So I need to mount something on here. And I'm trying to go long term with this. I do want to put a trolling motor, mod trolling motor on here. Love to have those motorcycles come down the road when I'm filming. What is up with that? So anyway, eventually I want to be able to put a trolling motor on here and be able to go back and forth between a rudder, trolling motor, or nothing. So I want it to be easy. And so I want to not use these 4 bolt holes because I'm thinking that's probably where the mount for a trolling motor is going to end up going. So what I thought is what I'll do is I'll utilize this space because it's recessed down a little bit below where these are at. And my thinking is looking for some type of plastic material, and I just picked up this cutting board at Walmart for cheap. And what I think I'm going to do with this cutting board now is cut out a pattern that's in the shape of just this recess right here and basically put a hole in it, but make it come to about right here. So it's going to just lay flat in this spot right here and drill a hole, put a bolt through here just to hold it down. And I think just with one bolt through this piece of plastic cutting board I'm going to have right here, one bolt through that sitting inside here is going to keep it from pivoting inside this groove. Plus it'll still be flat here, and then behind it, what I'm probably going to do is, because I'm going to have a lot of cutting board left, I'll probably cut some other pieces to laminate together so it's thicker at this piece right here. Then I'll drill a hole in that and be able to mount my trolling motor through this, or not trolling motor, the rudder through this. My thinking at that point then is possibly whenever I do my trolling motor that I can leave this in place and simply just pop the pin, pull the rudder out, unhook the cables that I'm going to have from it, and then go ahead and put the trolling motor mount, which will utilize these 4 bolt holes and some type of platform to hold it here, and it'll just sit right on top of this mount. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now, so that's what we're going to try. I'm going to cut a pattern here and cut it out on the bandsaw, shape it up, and yeah, I probably didn't have much color choices. I'll probably paint this thing maybe black or maybe orange to match the trim, who knows. But that's what I'm thinking right now, so we're going to see how this works. Alright, I basically got some paper, made a little template of that little back hatch on the kayak there. So this represents the back edge of it, but I'm going to come out a little further because once I drill my hole there, I'm going to have to drill another hole. This hole is for the original hole that's going to basically use for a bolt to bolt this piece in place. I'll drill another hole for the rudder to sit into, but it's got to come back far enough so that the rudder can spin without hitting the bolt that's holding this piece in place. So we're going to go ahead and get this cut and go from there. Alright, now we're going to use the sander to clean this thing up a little bit, and then we'll test our fit and use the sander to kind of get it to fit well before we go on to the next step. Not sure what this is going to look like. This doesn't feel like it's marking very well. It actually looks like it marked rather well, don't you think? Alright, so measure this hole here, 3/8. It's a 3-inch hole. That's what I meant to say, a 3/8 hole. Let's go drill us a 3/8 hole. Alright, I got my initial piece cut. It's going to fit right in the slot here. Got my hole lined up. It's a 3/8 inch hole. So what I've got is a 3.5 inch 3/8 bolt. I've just got a rubber gasket, if you will, and a washer run down through there. On the bottom I got a rubber gasket, another washer, and a locking nut. And I'm going to just get that fixed on there and tighten this up. Okay, bolted it in place. It's very sturdy, firm. It's not going anywhere. So I feel good about this. Feel like it's a good fit. But this line here represents the actual back plane of the boat edge. But what I realized after looking at this is obviously I built this to drill a hole further back to put this in. But the issue is if I'm too close to that, when it turns, it's going to hit the bolt, and I won't be able to turn. So I'm going to come back to about where that center line is to drill the hole, and that should give me full radius turns here for the rudder. So you know, I'll get a good measurement on that to drill this hole. But one thing I also want to do is I do have a long shank here, and right now I've just got one layer. This is kind of thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out on the bottom here the outline of this around the shape of the kayak here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the excess cutting board, and I'm going to cut out probably 2 more layers of this here just to laminate together with this to make it a little thicker before I drill this hole. So I'm going to cut those out, glue all this together, make it give it a little thickness to it, and then once that's done I'll get it trimmed up and probably paint the whole thing black so it kind of matches the boat, drill the next hole, and go from there. Okay, so I've got the center of this hole marked 2 1/16 inches from the center of my first hole, which goes through the existing hole in the Bonafide SS127, and this is the hole that we're going to drill for the rudder to go into. The rudder that I got came with a bushing that was attached on this shaft right here, and it said the shaft was too short for the original Bonafide. So I went ahead and put the bushing inside my piece right here, which I've made thicker, and I'm going to go ahead and slide this in. I'm going to get this mounted in place, and then we'll go from there. There, that's pretty solid right there. Very good. Got a couple little things to think about here. Rudder's going to drop in here like this. Boom. And we got the ability to turn this thing. So the only thing I was looking at this rudder design, you also put the pin under here to keep it from popping out. So there's a little cotter pin inside that shaft. And of course you bend that out when we're done. But the only thing I was thinking about here is our holes on this rudder are right here. And the way this mounts, even on a regular kayak that's flat here, you know, you're going to come across here and it's kind of flat. So it's almost like I need to put a spacer and a washer and lift this up just a little bit so that I've got some room for a wire to attach here so that it can go back and forth in either direction. Alright, now with this rudder just sitting here to test this out, I feel like this hole should have come back a little further, closer to the edge, to give me more of a turning radius until this hits. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take off maybe 1/4 of an inch of this backside and then repaint this, and that'll bring it a little closer to where I think it needs to be, and it'll give me more of a turn that I need to have. So we're going to do that and then take a look at this after that and see what it looks like. Alright, so basically this is what I ended up fabricating. This is the underside of it. It's that cutting board that we used. Just fabricated several layers of it, glued it together, cut it out, made some modifications to kind of get it to fit how I wanted to. Let's go ahead and mount this in place now. And basically now our rudder, I'm just putting this washer on just to give it a little elevation, because for whatever reason they've got this design where this is kind of lays flat, and this is where your attachments are. And so I'm still kind of thinking that one through, but basically that'll go in there. Put the cotter pin in here. I'll bend that out when I'm done, but basically we've got almost 90 degrees able to turn this rudder now. So the next piece got to do is run my cables and get that hooked up to the pedals. There's also there'll be a rope that's going to attach onto here so that you can lift this out of the water from up here by just this rope attachment to pull this up if you need to do that. But the next piece I got to figure out is how to get it attached. And it's got these holes here, but you know it's going to bind right here as you're turning. So I'm not sure if I need to flip something up to attach to here, or if there's enough, I have to put enough spacers in there to kind of lift this up a little bit. I'm just not sure. So we're going to kind of figure that out and see what we got to do next. But I think the design of this is solid, and it gives plenty of room for the rudder to go back and forth. And the other thing I like about this is what I'm hoping is that I'm going to use these 4 holes, these 1/4 20 holes, when I do a trolling motor. And my thinking is I can just take my rudder off, leave this in place, and have my mount for the trolling motor just mount right over top of this. I'll just have to drill a little indentation into the mount to set on this, but I won't have to take this piece on and off. So it's just a matter of dropping the rudder in, unattaching the cables, and attaching the trolling motor. That's my thinking anyway. I've seen people use a lot thinner wire than this. I've seen them use that Berkeley like 80-pound test fishing line that was nylon coated steel. This is what they had at Home Depot or Lowe's, wherever I was at. And so this is what I went with. It fits inside the tube that we ran right here. So this is what fits inside, real smooth. But there was already a hole pre-drilled in the steps here. But it's a small hole right here. So we need to drill it out a little bigger for this wire, because this wire is too big for that hole. So to get the best way to do that, I took this off here, Just take these threads out, give you a decent angle, and that just pops right out. And basically, I'll just drill a hole through here. But be careful when you drill it, because it is. I mean, it's pretty thick through there, but it's just a small, thin layer here. So just be real careful when you do it. And this drill bit is just sized for that wire right there. But just want to just kind of go slow and do it real careful like, and let the drill. It's got to go the right direction first of all. There you go. Kind of just wants to feed in. Get through the other side there. Reverse it out. There we go. That's good. Got a bigger hole there. We'll just put these test fit here. See if my wire's going to fit through there. Yes, it does. Perfect. All right, so we're going to get these foot pedals put back on, and we'll get these situated, mounted back in place, and go from there. All right, we're going to go ahead and run our wire through our tubing now that we've got over here. We're going to run this through. All goes well, it should come out the back one. There we go, we have wire. I guess the first thing we'll do is what I've done here is I've got some turnbuckles, and I'm basically I decided to use the turnbuckles because I didn't know when I put my wires on here if I'd have too much slack or not, and I figured this way I can adjust with the turnbuckles to tighten up the tension. And basically I've got some small carabiners that we're going to hook the cables to, and that way I can unattach this from the rudder controls, okay, which I just basically use some 50-pound hanging wire and wrap this on there. Alright, so anyway, so this is how we're going to attach to, right here. Alright, so basically I've got my wire, I've run it around the loop, put it back in the ferrule here. Okay, so what I've done now is I've cut the wire to the length, going through my hole, looped it back around the ferrule, and basically I've got the rudder turned as far back in the other direction as possible, so that when I go forward with this is when it'll take it the other direction. So I'm setting this one at this position. I'm going to do do the same thing on the other pedal. So I haven't fixed that ferrule yet. But basically, since that's as far as it's going to go in that direction, we're going to go ahead and put the stop on. And I will say, hindsight, if I did this again, smaller wire would be easier to work with. Smaller ferrules would be easier to work with as far as crimping is concerned. I got a crimp tool from Harbor Freight, and it basically didn't do worth squat for me. So I'm having to improvise and use my normal wire crimpers and then put them in basically in a pair of pliers to try to crimp it down tighter than what I need to be. But get your stop on here first. I'll try to get this on tight enough, and then I'm going to crimp this, and then I'm going to crimp my ferrule. So I've got my stop where it needs to go now. Get my crimp set real quick. Now I've got this crimp down, got my wire stop in place, and now this is going to slide back and forth for me. And we're going to do the other side, and then we'll show you what it looks like when they're both set. But I can pull all the way to here, and then if you'll notice, just keep watching this pedal here as I manually turn the rotor back here, bring the pedal right back in. So exactly what we want to do. So now we're going to do the other side and get that stop down, and we'll see how it feels when I'm in the cockpit. Alright, here you go. It's all hooked up. I'm going to have my lovely assistant push on the right rudder. And now push on the left rudder. Alright, very, very good. Let's do it again. Push the right rudder. And the left rudder. Now get them even. Put the pedals even. Got them even. And that looks good. Looks good here, guys. Looks very good. So we'll get it on the water, test it out, and hopefully this thing will work well.